Hi, welcome to the Wise Wellness webinar, which is a really big mouthful. Anyway, this week is going to be about gut health and why you need to pay attention to your gut and what are the signs and symptoms that your gut needs some extra attention. I also want to leave you with some practical tips that don't include a big protocol, but also give the options for the time and a place for a protocol and what that is for. I come across a lot of clients that come to me and have, trying to figure out their gut and they've restricted their food in a big way and therefore only eating, a handful of foods and are completely stressed out about it. And the way I work and think about the gut is that it is connected, completely connected to the brain. So you can't necessarily take out one and only look at one at a time. And a lot of times I think if people have gut issues, they, only focus on their food and then get frustrated with why they aren't seeing results. So today I want to broaden that conversation a little bit and also give you some practical ways or things to look for and options of taking it further or looking a little deeper. So here we go. I'm going to share some slides to make it a little bit easier to comprehend, understand, and we will go from there. So let me just here. And here we go. So gut health, how do you know when yours needs attention? The functions of the gut, your gut talks to your brain. It produces 90% of your serotonin, which is the feel-good hormone. And there's just so many reasons why your gut is the foundation of your health and how much it does for us, right? We have to go back to the whole point of eating food and digestion. And the reason why we eat food and it sustains our life is because when we eat food, our gut digestive system from our mouth, from really our sight, smell, mouth, esophagus, stomach, intestines, all the way to the colon, that big, long system, the whole purpose of it is to take the food that we eat, break it down into little bits, and then disperse the little bits of nutrients to the rest of our body to build muscle, build hormones, maintain our brain activity, keep our lungs pumping and giving us the calories to do so. So the whole point of food in the digestive system is to provide these tiny bits that our body can take and use to build what we need to do and sustain our life, right? So not only does it talk to your brain and build hormones, it is your immune system. It lives in your gut. I'm sure you've heard there's a lot about this around COVID time. But if you're a person who gets frequent colds, a lot of joint pain or achy body, this could mean there's system-wide inflammation. Your skin is also a reflection of your gut and what's going on inside your body. So that is always something to consider when you have chronic skin conditions or something cropping up. You are what you eat. So again, the whole point of the digestive system is to absorb this food and distribute it throughout the body, and so that every part has what it needs to function. It's really, really miraculous, if you ask me. But, I get a lot of clients that, send me their food log or, people reach out and say, hey, can you just look at my food log and tell me, am I doing it right? And I can never answer that question because it's always, how do you feel, right? Is your body absorbing what you need? Because if your food log looks really good and your body's absorbing the nutrients, then you feel really well and you're probably not reaching out to me. Um, if they eat this, like they have this beautiful food log, but there's something going on in the gut and they're not absorbing those nutrients and then they don't feel well. So their food log looks great, but they're not feeling well. So we have to look a little bit deeper. Your gut also houses the microbiome, which is in your inner ecosystem where bacteria, maintain a, tight ship in there, with a mix of stomach acid and bacteria and things to, the bacteria can take and use and create short chain fatty acids and things that your body will use. So it has a purpose in there. It also, the balance of good bacteria, bad bacteria, which, really creates a system that, again, a healthy system so that everything can do its job and digest and disseminate and keep you feeling good. Out of balance bacteria will cause bloating, fatigue, skin issues, anxiety, depression, all kinds of things. The gut is also where you house your detoxification. Eliminating our bodies have a detoxification system, right? So peeing, pooping, um, sweating, coughing, these are all ways for our body to get rid of things, toxic waste, or things that the body can't use or doesn't want in their body, right? An invasion, right? So pollen, body sneezes and coughs and the eyes water because it wants to get rid of those toxins, right? So we pee, we poop to get rid of toxins, right? So if that system isn't working well, it can affect everything from energy to mood and beyond. In my mind, again, the gut is the foundation to your overall health and well-being. So if the gut isn't, on the left is the house, right? The house with the solid foundation, the sturdy house, everything, stays stacked up and intact. But if the foundation underneath, if the bottom is cracking, then the cracks are going to kind of disseminate throughout the house and, you know, in this case, our bodies, right? So, somebody may be experiencing thyroid trouble or depression or anxiety, but really it's the breakdown in the gut. The gut isn't necessarily maybe getting what it needs, or it's not able to digest the food and assimilate the nutrients to make the hormones, or the body doesn't have enough food, whatever it may be, right? So the a lot of it lands in the health of your gut as, how the rest of our body is going to feel and what happens. So signs that your gut may need attention, people are most familiar with the stools or your poop. So undigested food in the stool, mucus or oily sheen, strong or foul smelling bowel movements. I get a question, well, doesn't everybody's poop smell? It does, but it shouldn't linger and stink up a whole room when you open the door. So there's a threshold for what it should be. Digestive symptoms, bloated, gassy, diarrhea, constipation, floating stools. So if you go to the bathroom and the stool kind of floats on the surface, it indicates, trouble digesting fats. Heartburn or acid reflux, or no consistency or irregular bowel movements. Those are the ones that I'd say people are most familiar with and usually come to me and say, I have a digestive problem or something's going on with what I'm eating. I don't know what to eat. I don't know what to do. But people don't realize that the gut is really also houses like your mood and your energy. So chronic fatigue, brain fog, mood swings, anxiety, depression. It also helps create food sensitivities or food cravings. So food sensitivities would be they're created when the gut lining starts to break apart because it's been broken down by stress or toxins or harmful bacteria or something like that. Whereas food cravings then can be because either your body's not getting enough of something, right? So you start to crave food because, some people, I remember when I was pregnant, I would crave red meat, and it's because, my body needed iron. So it can tell you that. Or if you're craving a lot of sugar, sometimes people get an overgrowth of, say, candida or yeast overgrowth, and that yeast actually, thrives on sugar. So it'll create really, really, really strong urges for the body to eat sugar, right? So then people come to me and they say, I'm a sugar addict. I don't know what to do. And, there's a lot of things around sugar, but that is one thing that we would, explore together and see if that was going on inside their gut. Frequent illnesses, infections, allergies, of course, we many people are sensitive to, say, environmental allergies, but you can if you've ever noticed, well, wow, my allergies are really bad at certain times, and then other times they're not so bad, your body has kind of a tolerance for this, right? And a lot of it will land on, the health of your gut at the time. So I've had periods of time where my allergies seem to go away. And really, it's if you can imagine like a cup, right? And if kind of maybe you have a sensitivity to dairy, and then you have a little sensitivity to say kale, and you have a sensitivity to pineapple, and then you go outside and all the pollen, your cup is kind of overflowing. But if you have a sensitivity to pollen, but maybe you don't eat dairy and maybe you don't eat pineapple, so then your tolerance level is like way lower, so allergies may not bother you as much during that time. So that's just one way that allergies can be. Autoimmune flare-ups. Autoimmune is always tied to the gut, skin, and body signals. So the skin is a good reflection of the gut. So a lot of times, if as something is going on in the skin, you want to check the gut. Of course, there are certain, topical things that could be aggravating to the skin, but for the most part, if it's something chronic, you do want to look at the gut or the tongue. Um, Unexplained weight loss or gain is something to think about. Okay, what happens if I ignore my gut health and just say I get a lot of, well, I've always been like this, or I've been bloated since I was a kid, or I've always had loose stools. That is not a good thing, right? The body sends us signals. Sometimes we don't know how to interpret it, but that's why you find a health professional to help you. But certain cancers are on the rise, especially colon cancer for our younger people, and the state of guts in America are really terrible. So, sugar, processed food, white foods, alcohol, those things are really, really hard on the gut. The body was never really meant to process those things because they're not found in nature. And if again, your body sends you signals, clues that your digestive system is off. So you want to pay attention. You want to ask questions, right? Find people to help you. Um, Other things that it can lead to is cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, neurodegenerative conditions such as Alzheimer and Parkinson's. So, not to mention like hypothyroid and low iron and nutrition deficiencies and, injuries. People, especially athletes, stress, somebody who receives stress fractures a lot or something like that might be an indication that you're not absorbing your nutrients. The good thing is that the gut is highly responsive to nutrition and lifestyle changes. And I say that because a lot of people go straight to, if my stomach hurts, I have to stop eating these foods. And I just want to say that that's not always the first step, right? So if somebody gets enough sleep, that can help repair a lot of things. If somebody doesn't get enough sleep, for example, then that person is typically going to crave sugar, right? Or carbohydrates. Sugar, carbohydrates are the body's fastest way to energy. So if you're not eating either enough or you didn't sleep enough, like the body is going to crave sugar, right? So just knowing that, getting more sleep or eating more food, like those things can help. Exercise can help move things along, especially somebody who's having trouble with, constipation or something. Added fiber can help. Meditation can lower stress or get you into a parasympathetic state more often. Being in nature is shown to help. Laughter, eating enough protein, being in community. Kind self-talk is a huge one. So anyway, I just want to show here that the body and the gut can react and respond to other things besides just food, and we'll talk about why in a bit. What is normal, right? And what is normal versus what is common, right? So what is normal is that you eat food and you feel energized for 3 or 4 hours with no abdominal discomfort. A lot of people will eat food and then just talk about this food coma. If you eat food and you feel tired afterwards, something's wrong. So it was either not a food for you, or it was too much. Like you had too much of a glycemic spike, right? Like a whole thing of pasta potentially was just too much at the time, right? So without any proteins or healthy fats to sort of bring that down. So food, when you eat food, you should have a full meal, should energize you and then sustain you and not have you thinking about food for 3 to 4 hours. I get clients all the time that tell me like, I think about food all day long. I eat and I'm hungry an hour later. Like these are things that we want to look at. The second thing is a solid bowel movement 1 to 3 times a day is normal and healthy, right? And when you're looking at this chart, I know poop isn't like the most fun to look at, and I'm sorry that it's been up on the screen for so long, but you're looking at type 4, right? That is an ideal formed stool, right? So when you kind of move in either direction away from this, getting into looser stools, more diarrhea to more constipated or, pieces of poop. So this will definitely indicate that you need to examine the gut health. What's not normal is feeling hungry an hour after eating, gas and bloating, constipation, loose, watery, floating black stools, achy joints, with the caveat that if you're a menopausal woman, you might experience achy joints for a different reason. Um, Frequent colds and illnesses, fatigue or insomnia, skin issues, GI issues when exercising. So I added that because again, I work with a lot of athletes or people training for events. And when I hear a lot, well, I don't have GI issues, but only when I'm training. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes the food or drink that you're using when you're training does cause GI upset. And so that is something, of course, we start to look at. But a lot of times what I find is athletes have their guts are sort of on the fritz. And when they put themselves, they don't really notice it in their day to day, but when they put themselves in a stressful situation or AKA training, they do, when the body's under stress, it is going to get, the gut issue gets worse. So when I find, when I meet with people that they come to me and they say, well, I only have it when I'm training. We do a deeper dive and we kind of talk about what's been going on before, what's after, and um, kind of figure out if there is an underlying gut condition or if the food or drink that they're using when they're training. So I bring that up just because a lot of people don't think about it. They kind of tie it to when I'm exercising or something like that. Okay, so we've gotten this far and you're like, okay, I realize why it's important. I am experiencing some of these things. Now what do I do? So the simple things that people don't think about typically that can really impact your digestion. Slowing down is one of the biggest things. I work with very busy people a lot of the times, right? So whether they have big jobs, CEOs, CFOs, or own their own companies, people that have kids and jobs and multiple things, endurance athletes that are managing families, jobs, and um, kids. So a lot of people eat at their desk, they eat on the go in the car, they go exercise and get to work and hop in their meetings and do everything and forget to eat, right? So all of these things like will impact the state of gut health, right? So one thing you can do is slow down. And I know, I mean, that's kind of a big topic, right? Easier said than done. People are like, oh, I don't have time for this. That's a whole nother webinar we'll do another time. But slowing down, right? And eating, taking time to eat. You don't have to take hours. You don't have to have a big placemat with candles and all the things. But you do have to, it is really good to sit, honor the process of digestion and food intake. Food and digestion is what keeps you alive, right? And it's the thing that we want to brush aside or speed up. So, taking time to eat your meals is a really important thing. And if you are having trouble with gas, bloating, or digestion, or something like that, sitting down and taking, say 5 deep breaths, with the exhale being longer than the inhale, and get yourself into a parasympathetic state, that can go a really long way. So again, it costs no money. It just, not a fancy supplement or anything like that. Just sit down, take a few deep breaths, get yourself into a restful state to eat your food. And I can't see all of you, but maybe you're rolling your eyes, but this is a big, big thing. Chewing your food can help a lot. When the digestive process starts, we see food, and if it looks good to us, we might start to salivate. We smell food when we walk into a restaurant or to a grocery store or down the street, and our salivary juices start going. And these are intentional, right? Like they are preparing your mouth for the food that is to come. So many people just prepare food. They're on a conference call. They're not smelling. They're not looking. They just pop it in their mouth. There are no digestive juices there, right? So that's why the process of doing that, slowing down, seeing the food, smelling the food, and then chewing your food. I'd love it if after this webinar, you go home and chew your food 30 times before you swallow it. And of course, that's going to matter a little bit depending on are you chewing steak or are you eating mashed potatoes, right? I don't think you need to chew mashed potatoes 30 times, but I think you'd figure that out. So when you're eating chicken or steak or something like that and really slowing down and counting how long, it's an absurd amount of time. It feels like forever when you first do it, but I really do think it's important to bring yourself into awareness, slow yourself down, and share in that, like being aware of that digestion process, right? So aiding yourself will really help kind of bring down gas, bloating, and overeating, frankly. Increased fiber, we're going to do another webinar on fiber and explain the two different types and what they're for. But most people think of fiber and they think, oh, it helps me poop. Well, it does, and it also helps bulk up the stools. So for people that consistently have loose stools, sometimes they just don't have the right mix of fibers, right? So or enough fiber to really kind of add that bulk to the stool. So increasing your fiber intake can help. Hydration is important because it helps move the stools through your body. It helps provide hydrate the water for the stomach acid and your salivary enzymes and digestion. So hydration is really important. I always recommend about half your body weight in ounces per day in the form of water, broth, herbal tea, fruits, and vegetables. So it doesn't all have to be water. There's nothing inside our bodies that is water. We are able to drink water, plain water, because there's electrolytes and nutrients in our food. But you can drink too much water, and I have clients that do. Are you eating enough is another question. Sometimes when you're not eating enough, your gut breaks down and reduce their stress response. And again, that can be in a whole nother webinar. But it does play a part, and we'll talk about it a bit later. So if you've done all those things and you're still like, my gut, is there something really wrong, or I can't keep food in, or I'm really struggling here. I hesitated on putting these steps in here, but I really want to bring them to your attention because people find things all over the internet and they start to follow them and they don't know how to implement it. So if you are at this point of, okay, I do think it's related to the foods that I'm eating, then we go into the 4 R's of functional medicine. And it makes it sound like these 4 things happen, one, then the other, then the other, then the other, right? Simultaneously. But in reality, a lot of these things might happen at the same time, right? But the first step is to remove, the offending foods or toxins or bacteria or whatever it may be. Sometimes you don't know what that is. So we're going to move into remove what it is. This step usually, for most people looks something like an elimination diet, or it looks something like pulling out gluten and dairy. Gluten and dairy are, the 2 most common things that create inflammation or wreak havoc on the body. And it's not that, dairy is terrible or, gluten is just like an absolute no-no. Gluten is difficult. There's 25 more times gluten in food these days than there were when I was growing up. It is also sprayed with glyphosate, which is, damages the gut lining. So a lot of times people really have a hard time if they are not eating high quality grains, Dairy is a whole nother thing. Some people can tolerate it, some people don't. As far as dairy goes, I am, a proponent of like a good whole milk yogurt with no added sugar. Um, and I like the fermented cottage cheeses and some hard, fancier cheeses, hard cheeses, and things like that that you would maybe find on a cheese plate. I am not a fan of processed cheese, grated, stuff that you throw on burritos and pizzas, mozzarella, those things that come out of, packages like that, I'm not a fan of. So anyway, going off topic a little bit, but so you take out the foods that you think are offending and for a period of time. And this is where I feel, and this is the whole reason I brought this into the picture, is this is where I feel people get stuck. People start removing things and they don't fix the problem because they're not looking holistically, right? And so they start pulling foods out and start pulling foods out, aren't getting better. They pull more foods and more foods and more foods. And by the time I get to them, they're eating like 5 foods. And they've been doing that for a long period of time and they're scared to death of to eat anything else. And it becomes this fear cycle. So removing is just one step in healing the gut, right? So once the harmful factors are removed, then you want to replace what's been taken away. That may be digestive enzymes for stomach acid or certain other elements of nutrients that you need to aid in the repair of the gut or the absorption of nutrients. We do have particular probiotics that help heal certain conditions. I get asked about probiotics all the time. That's a whole another conversation. But in terms of healing the gut, if there's something going on, then you would want to target it with a particular probiotic that has been shown to, treat that condition. You can also eat probiotic rich foods, which yogurt, fermented vegetables, and kombucha are good examples. Again, yogurt, no sugar yogurt is the way to go. Repairing this, there are lots of supplements that can help repair the gut lining. L-glutamine, zinc, carnitine, herbs like marshmallow root, aloe vera, deglycerated licorice, things like that can help repair. But again, I really, really stress if you're in this position, you are reaching out to a professional, whether it's me, whether it's another dietitian or nutritionist or, a functional medicine doctor, somebody that is going to help you identify which supplements are going to work best for your particular condition and what some signs and symptoms you have going on. What I have found, when I went to nutrition school, it was all like, oh, if a person has a gut problem, you do this. And if a person has this problem, you do this. And if a person has this problem, you do this. Well, in practice, it's really quite a lot more messy than that. And, if somebody has a gut problem, they probably have 10 other things going on, right? Because it's such a domino effect. So I really do encourage you to kind of reach out and get some help around this area. This is not just taking a bunch of supplements and stuff is not my recommended thing. So what's missing and why I coach a little bit differently than a lot of nutritionists is I coach a lot more holistically because and what I feel is left out of the functional medicine model is the fact that the gut and brain are connected. Right. So the gut and brain are connected literally by the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve runs from the bottom of the brain to all these other organs in your digestive system and liver. So the vagus nerve, it sends messages down and it receives messages up. So it is this kind of circular system. And that is why we cannot separate the physical part from the mental part. So when I'm working with a client, especially when I'm working on the gut, and I've experienced this many times myself, I'm sure you all listening might have as well. But there is a very physical component, right? Like I explained, gluten and glyphosate and stuff that really does break down the gut lining and can cause some serious inflammation. But negative self-talk and stress, that irritates the gut as well. I'm sure you've experienced, walking into something or, feeling nervous or excited and you kind of feel those butterflies in your stomach, right? It's because this system is kind of closed. It's all connected. So when I'm working with a client, or when you're thinking about what's going on in your body, you do kind of have to tackle, a little bit of both and kind of explore, mentally and physically, because you just can't separate them out. So I do, again, get clients that have tried every gut protocol and every supplement under the sun, and they still can't get a hold of the gut issue. And it's not really, because it's not being caused by the food that they're eating. It's being caused by the stress they are handling at work, or the relationship they have at home, or whatever it is. And until we kind of look all together, at one system, then it becomes really hard to tackle. So just bringing that up again, this could be a whole nother webinar, but I just want to point that out, that there is a physical and mental component. They are very integrated. But again, a reminder, that's why, working with your lifestyle habits can really help your gut health, right? So it is not all about the food. Sometimes it is you're not getting enough sleep, or you have a lot of negative self-talk, or you're really stressed out, or you're over exercising or under exercising, or you don't have good relationships. It can be a lot of other reasons that are really contributing to what's going on in your gut. So trying just your lifestyle habits can go a long way. Reviewing those small steps, just to kind of reiterate and remind you after hearing all of this other stuff, is you can slow down, you can chew your food, you can increase your fiber intake, you can look at your hydration, you can look at to see if you're fueling yourself enough. If you are not eating enough for your activity level, the gut will break down. And so again, when I started this work, it's like, oh, I have an athlete here, they have a gut problem, we've got to do this whole protocol. And I have switched my tune on that quite dramatically, because I find a lot of athletes don't eat enough. And as soon as we get them eating enough, the gut issues go away. So something to consider. And reduce stress response. So, again, working with clients, we talk about the whole picture. How do you feel when you go to work? How do you respond when you come home from work into your household? Is it a happy environment? Is it a stressful environment? What is happening in and around your meals, and when you're experiencing discomfort and stuff. So it is something we have to look at. What do I do if you have found that if you're listening to this and you're like, oh shit, this is me, sorry, but this is me and I need, no pun intended, I guess. Anyway, I need extra support and I don't know where to go. From my perspective, or with me, if you feel, one step is to do an elimination diet. There is a program on my website. It's labeled under the cleanse. It is something I use in the beginning of the year. And if you want to do it, though, it's a program that stands all alone. You can reach out, you can ask me if it's okay, or if it would suit your needs. That I'm certainly open to, advising on that when you explain a little bit more. But it is kind of self-led. All the materials are there. So you can reach out if that sounds like something you want to do. You can do a nutrition consult with me. I don't do a lot of nutrition consults. Because again, usually it links to, I'm, much more into the whole lifestyle coaching, because so it's so integrated. But I do a handful of consults, and sometimes you need to just bounce I understand, like you need to kind of get a grasp or understanding of what's going on with you, so that you can, again, sign up for additional coaching because it is more holistic, or find a doctor because it is a little bit more involved. So I do offer that, and then we will have some group programs in the fall. But I hope you can take this information and, use it for small steps, lifestyle things. I hope it can, raise your awareness to how important it is to take care of your gut, and that it is really something to not push aside and ignore, because you will pay the price at some point, right? It may not show up this year or next year, or 2 years from now, but it may show up 20 years from now as a condition that's really difficult to get rid of. So I hope you find that useful. Please reach out to me if you need any additional information, or you don't know where to turn, and I can certainly help you out. So Um, I appreciate you listening and provide feedback. And if you want different topics, please reach out and let me know.